Imagine drawing a digital circle around a single city block
Okay.
and instantly knowing the identity of literally every single person who walked through it yesterday.
It's wild to think about.
Right. And for years, law enforcement has been able to do exactly that.
Yeah.
They just quietly ask tech companies for location data.
Yeah, the geofence warrants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But today, the Supreme Court just pulled the plug on that entire surveillance mechanism.
They completely shut it down.
Yeah. So it is Monday, June 29th, 2026, and welcome to today's deep dive. We have a massive stack of sources to get through today.
A really big stack.
Yeah, from those historic rulings at the highest court to these absolutely crazy near trillion-dollar AI valuations to unprecedented environmental extremes that are just buckling our power grids.
And, the through line connecting all these seemingly separate spheres is this concept of friction.
Friction. Okay, I like that.
Yeah, we are watching institutional power, technological bottlenecks, and just really harsh earthly realities collide in real time today. So we're going to map out how these overlapping pressures are fundamentally reshaping the boundaries of the world that, you interact with every single day.
Right, the world the listener is living in right now. And because today's stack dives straight into major, highly charged topics.
Very charged.
Yeah, like Supreme Court rulings, election laws, and U.S.-Iran diplomacy. Let's just get this out of the way right up front.
Please do.
Our job today is not to take a stance.
Yeah.
We are not picking a side, and we are definitely not playing political pundit.
Exactly.
We are simply here to decode the mechanics of what was actually decided and reported. That's it. The goal is to impartially convey the factual ideas in the source material. So, you have the unfiltered data to draw your own conclusions.
And that is the baseline for literally everything we analyze.
Yeah.
Our blueprint for this deep dive is to look strictly at the structural mechanics of these events.
Just the mechanics.
Right. We're going to examine the regulatory power shifts happening in Washington, the financial traffic jams hitting Silicon Valley, the severe environmental stress tests on global infrastructure, and finally, how human coordination manages to somehow cut through all of that noise.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the Supreme Court because the decisions coming down right now are fundamentally redrawing the lines of institutional authority.
They really are.
So the headline making waves is this 6-3 ruling that overturned a 91-year-old precedent. It's known as Humphrey's executor.
Right, a very old case.
Yeah, and on paper, this ruling says the president now has the constitutional authority to fire the heads of independent regulatory agencies, like the Federal Trade Commission, for example, at will.
Which is huge.
But frankly, hearing about a 91-year-old case doesn't immediately explain the stakes to me.
Yeah, it sounds pretty dry.
Yeah. So why is overturning a precedent from the 1930s sending such massive shockwaves through Washington today?
Well, what's fascinating here is to grasp the magnitude, you really have to look at the architecture of the U.S. government that was established back during the New Deal era.
Okay.
For nearly a century, Congress designed certain federal agencies to be deliberately insulated from the immediate day-to-day political pressures of the Oval Office.
Meaning the president couldn't just boss them around.
Exactly. And the mechanism for that insulation was a rule stating agency heads could only be fired for cause.
Cause, like they actually did something wrong.
Right, meaning objective malfeasance or gross neglect of duty. A president couldn't just fire the head of the FTC, just because they disagreed on how aggressively to pursue a specific antitrust lawsuit.
Okay, that makes sense.
But by dismantling Humphrey's executor today, the court is eliminating that buffer.
Wow.
Yeah, it centralizes executive power, giving the president direct, at-will control over the leadership of this vast regulatory state.
But wait, in the very same batch of rulings, the court drew a really stark line around a totally different institution.
Yeah, they did.
In a separate 5-4 alignment, Chief Justice Roberts joined the minority bloc to issue a stay that allows Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to remain in office while lower court litigation plays out.
Right.
So wait, they just expanded direct presidential power over agencies like the FTC, but then they threw a protective legal shield around the central bank.
That is exactly what happened.
I'm trying to visualize this. It feels like a corporate CEO who just went to court and won the absolute power to fire their marketing director at any time for literally any reason.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But in the very same afternoon, the judge legally locked that CEO out of firing their chief accountant. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Well, the analogy definitely highlights the functional divide, though it maybe misses a crucial constitutional nuance.
Fair enough.
A corporate CEO inherently owns all operational power in a company, whereas the Constitution divides it up.
Right, checks and balances.
Exactly. What the court is doing here is defining which functions are inherently executive and which ones are not.
Mm.
They're allowing the executive branch much more muscular control over regulatory bodies that enforce market rules. So your marketing director in that analogy.
Got it.
But they are treating the entity that dictates the money supply and sets interest rates.
The chief accountant.
Yes, the chief accountant. They're treating that as a fundamentally different mechanism. The operational insulation of the Federal Reserve is being treated as legally sacred, basically to prevent the manipulation of monetary policy for short-term political gain.
Okay, that makes the distinction much clearer for me. And the court is like applying the same structural realignment to the legislative branch as well, right?
Yes, very much so.
Because the sources highlight how midterm trade strategies are currently being heavily shaped by a prior Supreme Court ruling.
Right.
And that previous ruling severely limited the executive branch's authority to unilaterally impose national import tariffs without explicit statutory consent from Congress.
Which is just another massive recalibration of where power actually lives in Washington. The court is pulling the authority to levy economic tariffs back toward the legislative branch, while simultaneously pushing regulatory enforcement power directly into the Oval Office.
And we are seeing that same theme of decentralization play out in elections, too.
Oh, absolutely.
The court rejected a challenge that was aimed at establishing a strict federal cutoff for mail-in ballots.
Right, they threw that out.
Yeah, they upheld state laws that permit the counting of mail-in ballots received after Election Day, as long as those ballots are postmarked on time.
And the mechanism at play there is really just logistics.
How so?
Well, rather than imposing a blanket federal mandate that completely ignores the reality of localized postal delays, the court is reinforcing state-level authority to manage the actual physical mechanics of an election.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the scenario I mentioned at the very beginning of the show.
The geofence warrants.
Yes, the geofence warrants. So in a 6-3 decision, the court ruled on the Fourth Amendment implications of drawing a digital circle around a geographic area to track devices.
A huge privacy ruling.
But before we get to the actual ruling, how does a geofence warrant actually function on a technical level? Like, how were they doing this?
So historically, law enforcement could approach a tech company that aggregates location data.
Like from our phones.
Yeah. Often collected via GPS, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi pings from everyday apps that you use.
Okay.
And they'd present a geofence warrant. Instead of asking for the location history of a specific known suspect, they just provide a time window and a geographic boundary.
So they don't even know who they're looking for yet.
Exactly. They might say, hey, give us the anonymous device IDs of every single phone that was inside this 4-block radius last Tuesday between 2:00 p.m. and 4:00 p.m.
Wow.
Then the tech company runs that query through their massive databases, hands over the list of devices, and investigators work backward to de-anonymize the data and find their suspects.
It's essentially a dragnet.
Basically.
Yeah. But this new ruling states that querying these commercial location databases without a specific individualized warrant actually constitutes an illegal search. They're essentially saying that just because our smartphones are constantly pinging cell towers, that doesn't mean we'd surrender our constitutional right to privacy in public spaces.
And the legal mechanism the court is applying here is profound.
Yeah.
They are determining that our modern digital footprints, even when aggregated in third-party commercial databases, are protected under the Fourth Amendment in the exact same way our physical homes are.
That is a massive shift.
It really is.
Mm.
Law enforcement can no longer use a geographic net. They have to use a spear, identifying the suspect first before they can demand their digital data.
Wow. Well, here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
We just spent all this time talking about Washington regulating digital data, but the companies actually hoarding that data are facing their own existential roadblocks right now.
Oh, the AI sector. Yes.
The financial numbers coming out of the AI sector this morning are almost hard to process.
They're staggering.
I mean, Anthropic just secured a $65 billion Series H funding round.
$65 billion.
Yeah, and this round was led by Altimeter, Sequoia, and Dragoneer. And it pushes their enterprise valuation to an astronomical $965 billion.
Almost a trillion.
Almost $1 trillion. And the sources also cite an estimated annualized revenue run rate of $47 billion.
Right.
But let me stop there because that term gets thrown around a lot. What does a $47 billion run rate actually mean for a company in this stage?
It's a good question.
Because it sounds like they already have that cash sitting in the bank, do they?
No, it definitely doesn't mean they have 47 billion sitting in a vault somewhere.
Okay, so what is it?
A run rate is a forward-looking metric.
Okay.
It takes the revenue Anthropic generated in the most recent month from their enterprise contracts and API usage and simply multiplies it by 12.
Oh, wow. So it's just a projection.
Yes. It projects what their annual revenue will be if they maintain their current exact pace of sales without any growth or contraction. It is a metric used to justify that near trillion-dollar valuation to investors. It signals that they aren't just building research projects anymore, they are moving massive commercial volume.
But despite those staggering metrics, they are hitting a wall.
A big one?
Our sources note that both Anthropic's new Fable 5 model and OpenAI's GPT 5.6 variants are currently stuck in narrow developer previews.
Right, they can't fully launch.
Because government evaluation teams are formalizing risk metrics and putting both of these frontier models through identical stringent compliance review cycles.
Yes.
So the government is auditing their safety before they can release them to the public.
And the mechanism causing that delay is called red teaming.
Red teaming.
Yeah. Before a model with this level of reasoning capability can be deployed, government and third-party auditors actively try to break it.
Oh, like hacking it.
Kind of. They test if the AI can be manipulated into generating malicious code or bypassing cybersecurity protocols or, producing instructions for chemical weapons.
Yikes. Yeah, you definitely want to test for that.
Exactly. But formalizing those risk metrics takes months of adversarial testing, which completely flattens the product rollout timelines these companies promise their investors.
And while these tech giants are stuck in a regulatory holding pattern, the actual businesses trying to use their AI models are bleeding money.
Oh, heavily.
The sources point to a growing crisis called API token overhead that is forcing a massive migration in the enterprise market.
Yeah, it's a huge issue.
So I need some clarity on this. I understand that businesses pay to access these models, but what exactly is a token?
Good question.
Are we talking about a literal unit of electricity or is it a unit of data?
It is a unit of data processing.
Okay.
When you type a prompt into an AI model, it doesn't read words the way a human does. It breaks the text down into numerical chunks called tokens.
Oh, okay.
A single token is roughly 3/4 of a standard English word. When a business integrates a massive model, like GPT 5.6, into their workflow, they pay a microscopic fraction of a cent for every single token the model reads and every single token the model generates in response.
So if I'm running an automated assistant platform like Lindy, which our sources specifically mention,
Right.
and my platform is processing millions of customer service emails a day, I am basically paying for every single syllable of those emails.
Precisely. You pay for everything it sees and says.
Wow.
And as these proprietary Western models grow larger and more complex, the computational cost to run them skyrockets, which means the price per token goes up.
So to survive, budget-conscious platforms like Lindy are just abandoning these massive proprietary models entirely.
You have to.
They're transitioning their core workloads to highly efficient alternative architectures, specifically open-weight models like DeepSeek.
Exactly.
I mean, it sounds like these AI companies have built a trillion-dollar hypercar, but they are stuck in a regulatory traffic jam.
That's a great way to put it.
So budget-conscious commuters are just taking the DeepSeek backroads to get to work faster and cheaper. It's like hiring a world-renowned astrophysicist with a PhD to balance your checkbook.
Right.
Yes, the astrophysicists can do it, but they charge $500 an hour. Eventually, you realize you don't need a supercomputer. You just need a pocket calculator that costs $2.
Yeah, the economics of AI are fundamentally shifting.
Clearly.
It proves that maintaining technological dominance isn't just about possessing the most parameters or raw reasoning power anymore.
Right.
If the API token overhead drains the profit margins of the businesses utilizing your software, that raw power is commercially useless to them.
Exactly.
Cost effectiveness and specialized efficiency are overtaking sheer scale as the primary drivers of the market right now.
Which is a perfect transition because the immense computational energy required to power those trillion-dollar AI data centers relies directly on our physical power grids.
Yes, it does.
And those grids are currently buckling under an extreme environmental crisis.
It's bad out there right now.
We are tracking a historic summer heat dome intensifying across the central and eastern United States. This system is pushing heat index values up to 115 degrees Fahrenheit for over 220 million Americans.
It's just massive.
Texas and the southern states are facing sustained advisories for temperatures between 100 and 105 degrees. I hear the term heat dome every summer now, but mechanically, what is actually happening in the atmosphere to trap this air?
So a heat dome is driven by a massive high-pressure atmospheric system called subsidence.
Subsidence, okay.
Imagine a mountain of high-pressure air sitting miles above the continent. That high pressure physically pushes the air beneath it downward.
Like pressing down on it.
Exactly. As the air sinks toward the surface, it compresses, and basic thermodynamics dictates that compressing a gas causes it to heat up.
Oh, wow.
So this high-pressure lid prevents cooler, low-pressure weather systems from moving through. When you combine that compression with steady southern wind vectors feeding dry air into the system, the heat simply compounds on itself day after day.
And the cascading effects of that atmospheric lid are devastating.
Truly.
Out west, they're facing severe wildfire threats. And paradoxically, the sources note, it is being driven by an unseasonal cold front pushing against the heat.
Yeah.
In Utah, the Cottonwood Fire is currently at zero containment, and tragically, 2 wildland firefighters have already been lost.
It's awful.
But wait, why does a cold front make a fire worse? Wouldn't cold air help suppress the heat?
You would think so, but it's not about the temperature of the air, it's about the collision.
The collision?
Yeah, when a dense, unseasonal cold front violently collides with a massive, stagnant body of hot air, it creates extreme wind shear.
The wind.
Right. Those erratic, high-velocity winds act like a bellows on a forge, just supercharging the existing flames and driving the fire across the landscape way faster than containment lines can be drawn.
That is terrifying.
It is. That is why the total domestic acreage burned in 2026 has already approached 3 million acres, vastly outpacing historical seasonal baselines.
And it isn't just the atmosphere failing us, it's geology too.
Right, the earthquakes.
In Venezuela, rescue workers are enduring continuous seismic aftershocks 5 days after major twin earthquakes struck near Caracas.
5 days later.
Yeah, the damage to urban infrastructure is extensive, with official reports confirming nearly 1,500 casualties. So, if we look at all of this, the failing grids, the wildfires, the earthquakes, how does this systemic environmental stress actually impact the daily infrastructure that a listener relies on?
Well,
Like if I'm supposed to fly out of O'Hare next week for a business trip, how do these massive environmental events change my experience at the security gate?
if we connect this to the bigger picture, environmental extremes force the federal government to constantly reallocate emergency resources. When federal infrastructure is stressed by anomalous events like deploying national resources to fight unprecedented wildfires or dealing with cascading flight delays from extreme heat, the everyday systems we rely on begin to fray.
And we are actually seeing the legislative response to that fraying right now.
Yes.
Congress is currently reviewing a legislative expansion of private passenger screening programs at airports.
Right, moving away from just TSA.
Yeah, currently 20 domestic airports use private federal contractors instead of standard TSA staff for passenger screening. With peak summer travel volumes approaching, Congress is exploring whether to expand this privatized model.
And that legislative review is a direct mechanical response to system strain. The program is called the Screening Partnership Program. It basically allows airports to use private security firms, who, by the way, still operate under strict federal TSA regulations, as a relief valve.
Relief valve.
Yeah, when the federal apparatus is overextended, outsourcing the physical labor of security screening to regulated private contractors is one way the system attempts to maintain operational capacity.
It is a heavy realization to see how fragile the physical world is right now.
It really is.
But despite the Earth literally burning and shaking, human coordination is still attempting to impose order on the chaos.
We keep trying.
Yeah, we are seeing intense precision happening across international lines today. In the realm of diplomacy, U.S. and Iran special envoys have arrived in Doha, Qatar.
Right.
They are initiating structured, outer channel technical frameworks regarding regional ceasefires. And again, referencing the source material objectively here.
Right, just reporting the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These talks follow an agreement to release $6 billion in previously restricted institutional assets.
The phrase outer channel technical frameworks is really key there.
What does that actually mean?
Well, when geopolitical trust is virtually non-existent, diplomacy relies on extreme structural rigidity.
Okay.
These envoys aren't just sitting in a room talking freely. They are communicating through complex, predefined protocols designed to mitigate misinterpretation and slowly de-escalate generational tension.
And speaking of extreme structural rigidity, look at the coordination happening in orbit right now.
Oh, the spacewalk.
Yeah. NASA is managing a critical spacewalk on the International Space Station scheduled for Tuesday. Astronauts are going outside to exchange a complex wrist joint mechanism on the Canadarm2 robotic assembly.
Just incredible.
And they're executing this repair while being managed by live engineering telemetry feeds from the ground. I mean, the mechanics of turning a wrench in zero gravity always blew my mind because of Newton's third law.
Right. Equal and opposite reaction.
Now, if you apply torque to a bolt in space without being firmly anchored, the bolt doesn't turn. You just spin yourself around the bolt.
It is the ultimate example of human precision. They are replacing what is known as a latching end effector, basically a robotic wrist with multiple degrees of freedom, while hurtling around the Earth at 17,000 miles per hour.
It's insane.
It requires a flawless, continuous loop of data between the physical astronauts and the engineering teams on the ground.
And we even see that reliance on precise frameworks on the sports pitch.
Yes, the knockouts.
In the international knockout brackets, Brazil secured a dramatic 2-1 victory over Japan. They were down early, leveled the score, and a Brazilian striker landed a decisive header in the 94th minute of stoppage time.
A thriller.
Seriously. Meanwhile, up in Boston at Gillette Stadium, Paraguay is holding a 1-0 lead over Germany. The sources note that Germany is entirely dominating territorial possession, but they are losing due to a single, critical execution error while playing a high defensive line.
You know, this raises an important question for us to consider as we look at this entire stack of sources today.
What's that?
Whether it is the rigid offside rules of a soccer pitch, the unyielding laws of orbital mechanics, or the delicate technical protocols of international diplomacy, these frameworks are the invisible threads we use to hold a chaotic world together.
That's a great point.
When the environment is burning or the ground is shaking, humanity's instinct is to double down on these constructed rules just to maintain a sense of order.
Well, as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with something to look out for tonight that perfectly captures that intersection of nature and timing.
The moon.
Yes. We've reached the astronomical midpoint of the season. The summer strawberry moon, which is the first full moon of the seasonal cycle, is peaking globally this evening.
It should be beautiful.
Yeah, if you have unobstructed skies in the northern hemisphere, you will be in the optimal viewing corridor to see it at its maximum illumination. And looking ahead to our Tuesday outlook, the judicial term wraps up tomorrow.
More rulings coming.
Yep, we're expecting the final remaining Supreme Court opinions to drop regarding citizenship laws and campaign financing frameworks. Plus, those international knockout brackets continue with matches scheduled at AT&T Stadium in Arlington.
Lots to watch for.
Definitely. And I want to remind you, the listener, why we dig into the mechanics of all this stuff. Everything we cover today. The legal parameters keeping geofence warrants out of your neighborhood, the API token economics dictating the cost of the apps on your phone, the atmospheric pressure driving the heat index outside your front door.
It's all connected.
It is. These aren't just distant headlines. They are the moving parts that directly shape the reality you have to walk through this week. When you understand the how and the why behind these systems, you are infinitely better equipped to navigate them.
And as you step outside tonight and look up at that strawberry moon, I want to offer a final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
Today, we've essentially been analyzing the concept of control.
Control, yeah.
The Supreme Court is redefining which branch of government has direct control over our regulatory agencies. The escalating extreme weather is violently demonstrating how little control we actually have over the physical Earth. And the massive tech giants, despite their near trillion-dollar valuations, are realizing they don't even control their own product rollout timelines when faced with government safety auditors.
That's so true.
If we are truly entering an era where our illusion of direct control is slipping, whether to the climate, to algorithms, or to shifting laws, perhaps adaptability rather than control will prove to be the most valuable human trait of all.
Something to think about under the moonlight. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.